Hello, and welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Genshin Impact. My name is Azuark, and after talking about reactions, we ought to talk about a few other things related to character and team building before we finally rip that band-aid off and start discussing teams in general. Today, our area of interest will be weapons. Every playable character in Genshin comes with one of 5 weapon classes: one-hand sword, claymore, polearm, bow, or catalyst. Considering players only have one slot for weapon and no additional items they equip beyond their artifacts, the differences between these are largely superficial in that you can't, equip a shield with a one-handed sword, or have a bow and a ranged weapon in addition to melee. However, to say that there's no difference between the 5 weapon types would be incredibly inaccurate. Of them, the only 2 that are functionally about the same are the swords and the polearms. They both attack at melee range, with decent speed, and a charge attack that surges forward into the enemy. Other than a slight advantage in reach for polearms, they may as well be the same in terms of how they play. Claymores are the next closest, considering they're also a melee weapon, but their charge attack is a wind-up and hold series of attacks, and claymores inflict heavy damage, meaning that they can be used to easily break ore and geoshields. Also, claymores attack much more slowly than other weapon classes, which frequently makes them feel cumbersome and clunky. Bows and catalysts are a bit different. When using the normal attack button, a bow will fire an arrow that hits a single enemy with no possibility for splash damage, and can sometimes miss if the enemy is moving. Bows aren't really intended to be used this way, though it's an option. Instead, bow characters are either supports who don't attack at all, or they use their charge attack, which puts them into aim shot mode. Aim shots charge for a moment, after which they will fire an elemental arrow instead of physical damage. And finally, there's catalysts, which are the stand-in for all the magic weapons in the game. Early catalysts were predominantly magic tomes, but there are a variety of other focus items now. Catalysts typically attack at shorter range than bows, but every single hit they deal is elemental rather than physical. There are also a few catalyst users who have alternate attack styles, such as, for example, Hazo and Wriothesley, who punch their enemies. Characters can freely swap between any of the weapons in their class that you've collected. This means it's possible you might upgrade a weapon, leaving an old one behind, or you might switch between 2 weapons based on the situation. Or you might just not level very many weapons and trade them back and forth between whoever you're playing at the time. However, unlike artifacts where you will legitimately outgrow old artifacts, a leveled weapon will always be there and available if you decide you want it. Leveling weapons is almost identical to leveling characters. Characters need a special item, experience books, and at certain checkpoints need to perform ascensions. Weapons are no different. Their special item is Mystic Enhancement Ore, and they ascend at the same levels as characters. The only difference here are that weapons can also be leveled by feeding them your junk weapons, and the ascensions are performed without the need to fight a boss. Instead, weapon materials come from specific domains that rotate between 3 possible upgrade items throughout the week. This means you might not be able to upgrade your newest weapon on a given day, so you may need to plan ahead. The primary function of a weapon is to provide attack to the wielder. All weapons provide ATK that varies according to the weapon itself and its level. They also have a stat bonus which will increase after every 5 weapon levels, and while you probably won't be looking at these right away, preferring to slap whatever 4-star weapons you have available onto the characters who need them, long term these might be rather valuable. And finally, they have an effect in the text. Some of these are really long and hard to interpret, but they often are the big difference maker in a weapon's power. Even 3-star weapons like Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers can be extremely useful when one makes use of the effect. So when you're first starting off, the easiest question to ask is, great, but where the heck can I even get a decent weapon? First of all, treasure chests award 1, 2, and even 3-star weapons. I would never recommend using a 1 or 2-star weapon, but some of the 3s are decent, and you might not have a better option. So here are a few important 3-stars I'd be on the lookout for. Black Tassel is a spear that has a pretty useful text, but it's nearly the only polearm that has a main stat of HP %, making it a great option for support characters like Zhongli, Yao Yao, and Toma, even after flashier options present themselves. Debate Club is a solid, if unspectacular weapon that will keep your Claymore characters going for a while. My D-Luke is currently using a debate club. Harbinger of Dawn is a good sword, especially for off-field damage dealers who can keep the passive crit rate bonus active, like Albedo, Chiori, or Xingqiu. Slingshot is surprisingly good for on-field bow users who might attack at point-blank range, like Child, Ganyu, or DPS Fischl. Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers is an amazing support catalyst, as switching immediately from the wielder to your main damage dealer can lead to a significant damage boost. And that's just one of each type, but don't let that stop you from considering others. I mentioned Xingqiu when talking about Harbinger of Dawn, but even better for him is probably the Skyrider sword because of its energy recharge stat. Of course, if you can find a 4 or 5-star weapon that accomplishes the same things, they're going to perform better. You'll just find them harder to acquire, since they're not given out as freely. The one additional thing I'd like to say about 3-star weapons is that sometimes they are deceptively good, and I recommend that you lock one copy of each just to have them. The game's leveling system will use weapons before enhancement ore, so once you commit to using 3-star weapons in ore for leveling, all those weapons are going to disappear from your inventory. Not only would I make sure to keep one of each, but I do my best to make sure you refine them. When you earn extra copies of characters, you can unlock a small bonus called a constellation. The same thing applies to weapons, except the bonus is always tied to the blue numbers in the effect text. You can refine a weapon up to 4 times, and in most cases an R5 weapon will have numbers that are twice as large as that of an R1. For example, the base version of Raven Bow gives 12% bonus to enemies with Hydro or Pyro. At Refinement 5, it gives a 24% bonus. Refining all your 3-star weapons isn't a must, but it's something you ought to keep an eye out for, since you'll get a ton of them throughout your adventures. Of course, refinements also apply to 4 and 5-star weapons too, but getting multiple copies of those are harder. Acquiring those rare weapons is usually accomplished through the gacha. Even if weapons usually feel like you're losing out on getting a new character, sometimes a new weapon is more valuable, especially when it's the right weapon. But here's a few other places you can get high-tier weapons. Account levels and bosses sometimes reward you with billets, which can be taken to a smith to craft a weapon of that type. Each region gets a new set of weapons that can be made from billets, and so over time, these craftable weapons can not only be acquired, but refined too. Paimon's Bargains in the shop sells 2 types of weapons for Star Glitter. Of these, the Black Cliff weapons are superior to the Royal weapons, and the shop swaps between them each month. They cost a lot of Star Glitter though, so I'd save this option for if you get desperate. Rank 30 of the paid version of the Battle Pass allows you to select a weapon. Major limited time events, 1 each patch, usually alternate between giving a free 4-star character and a free 4-star weapon. These weapons are unique to that event and will never be seen again. After completing the Liyue Archon quest, you'll unlock fishing, and there are a few 4-star weapons available by turning in enough fish. The Ketch and Fleuve Sand Ferrymen are really good weapons that you can guarantee. And in addition to getting weapons randomly from the regular character banners of the gacha, there's also the weapon banner. Not usually a good target for new players, but if you've got money to burn, the weapons featured on the weapon banner are designed specifically for use with the 5-star characters currently available. And you'll also almost always get 4-star weapons from the weapon banner too. So, good luck with the gacha gods, or with billets dropping from your world bosses. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.